And they may silently feel that visibility is vanity. And really and truly, visibility isn't vanity, it's
Mhm.
strategy.
It is. Yeah.
Have you ever been told to stay humble, be it by somebody else or maybe even yourself, only to realize that humility, when misunderstood, can keep you invisible? Today, we're challenging one of the biggest myths in career growth, that visibility is vanity. Because the truth is, visibility is strategy. I'm Dr. Natalie Luke, and this is the UnCeiling You podcast, the show that helps you lead from your fullest self. My guest today is a nationally recognized resume expert who has helped thousands of professionals turn career setbacks into opportunities. We're digging into the hidden job market, how most jobs are never posted, and why real opportunities live in relationships, not job boards. If you've ever hesitated to talk about your wins or feared being too much, this episode will show you how to own your story without apology. Let's dig in. Here's a surprising thing. Job boards are where dreams go to die. So where do the real opportunities live? I am so happy to be here with Dawn. And Dawn, thank you for joining Unsealing You and sharing your expertise with us. I think our listeners are going to learn some surprising things.
I can't wait to talk about some of these things for sure.
Awesome. So you talk about the secret job market, what it is and why it's so powerful. So how do women, especially those who weren't raised to network with others, start tapping into these hidden opportunities without feeling fake or transactional?
It is going to require some time and some centering, basically. I think a lot of women, they feel more timid. I mean, we've been taught a lot to be much more modest and talking about what we bring to the table. And the many years I've been doing resumes and working with people in their careers, I find that a lot of women are just not really able to own their own power. And if you switch the mindset, you're not boasting. You actually want to talk about how you helped and how you may help to make a difference. So when it comes to networking, being secure and centered on your own source of power can be really impactful. And sticking your hand out and knowing that you're an equal player in that playground, that really makes a big difference, especially when you're going to an event where you don't know anybody. I'm personally an introvert, so I had to learn how to be an extroverted introvert, and it's paid off a lot. It's just not being fearless. I think that's really what it boils down to.
And you've
Mhm.
worked directly with HR managers and recruiters and what they're looking for in the first 6-second scan of that resume. What are the biggest mistakes women can make in trying to stay humble, as you just described on paper? And how does that hold them back?
A lot of times women will start thinking, I call it the group snake mentality. They try to assign like it was a process of a group. Of course it was, but the group's not in there and on interview with the woman that's in the interview. So it's you as the woman that has to own that and understand that everybody has an important role to play. So you need to be able to speak directly to what you bring to the table. And in the resume accomplishments, you need to think about, how did you move the needle? How did you make a difference? What problems did you solve? What opportunities did you capitalize on? And that unique attribute and understanding what that facet is really delivers incredible value to people who are, looking for jobs. If you own and know your value, it's going to come across that way.
Yeah. When you're working with people on their resume, what are some of the ways that you help them get connected to their value?
Well, it's many times there's two different formats. There's the STAR format or the CAR format, and it's challenge, action, results. So understanding what the problem was, describing what you did to address the problem, and then coming out with a measurable outcome. So that's more or less underneath each employer. Talking, instead of just listing a bunch of job duties, you need to show that value. But in a greater sense, at the top of the resume, we really also want to come up with a branding statement that communicates what you do best, what you like to do, and how's that going to help the company that you're applying to. So understanding what your secret sauce is, what you love to do, that can be huge impact and really set someone up for being a top priority for being interviewed.
Yay. So one of the things that we think as women is, and also introverts, is stay quiet, keep your head down, keep working. And they may silently feel that visibility is vanity. And really and truly, visibility isn't vanity. It's
Mhm.
strategy.
It is. Yeah. And if you change your mindset about the whole thing, really a job search is just your own marketing campaign. And
Mm.
so it's, if you think about it, it takes several touch points before a message starts to stick. So any way someone sees you online, anytime you have an interaction with someone, anytime you communicate with a person, that's all part of the aggregate of this marketing campaign. And so you want to be consistent throughout. Also want to reinforce what you want to be known for. So it's a conscious movement to build momentum and visibility at the same time about you and what you bring to the table. And it's just getting a footprint. And if you don't have a footprint, the problem is a lot of employers don't see you as relevant because you haven't done much, apparently enough to capture notice.
Hey, I just want to stop in here and emphasize something that Dawn just said, that visibility isn't vanity, it's strategy. This is a perfect reminder that leadership isn't about being louder, it's about being anchored. One of the biggest mindset resets I teach in Leadership Reset program is to shift from validation to self-trust. When we chase validation, we perform for approval. Our confidence rises and falls based on what other people's reactions are. But when we lead from self-trust, we stop auditioning and start owning the room. So here's a quick reflection before we get on to the next part of the conversation. Whether it's a pitch, an interview, or a team meeting, pause. Take a pause for 10 seconds and ask, what would it look like if I trusted myself right now? Because the moment you move from proving to being, you stop competing for space and you start creating it. There you go. So you've helped people build their brand, and that's part of knowing your purpose. So what does a strong personal brand look like in practice? Like, how do you know that the employer is going to see it, and how does it change someone's job prospects?
Absolutely. Well, I'll give an example. There was a person I worked with who was in corporate HR, which is a pretty select field. And they were at a very large casino on the East Coast. And they were in charge of communications to get information out to the employees. And there's a lot of regulations in that field. So we ended up coming up with a branding statement that said basically adding volume to the corporate voice. And so that was, we were just trying to think about how she cutting through all the noise. And she had done a lot of different things to rebuild the corporate communications, and the click rate of employee newsletters were skyrocketed under her leadership. So she's adding that volume, and volume gets attention. And so that was a great example of the branding that helps set herself apart from somebody else. And branding statements replace the old time objective statements. Of course,
Uh,
an objective statement is like, I want to find a job and you're the company I want to work for. Well, duh, that's why you're applying. So the branding statement actually is a much more powerful thing, saying, here's what I'm going to do for you. And that is amazing. And that gets employers' attention. Absolutely.
so I imagine that worked for her.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's got to be rewarding for you as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And there was another person, it was a salesperson, and he liked to do race cars. So we came up with the tagline of running circles around the competition. He was in sales. It's just, it's kind of fun. I mean, not everybody's going to be that creative, but it's kind of fun to take those little pieces and then weave it into the personal story of the person and showcase value.
Yeah. So then everything, all of the deliverables, all of the things that they did really resonates around that tagline for them.
Absolutely, because we showed in the salesperson, race car driver one, about how many times he laps around the competition, literally, that he was excelling in almost unbelievable percentages. about how he was beating his sales goals, and that just basically shut out the competition.
Wow. So just taking the time to understand your purpose, understand that tagline, and then tying it all back makes a big difference. And a lot of mid-career women are just feel totally awkward about promoting themselves, but I could see where this could make it so much fun. So how can that shift in mindset be approached naturally? Like how do you help your people approach getting their tagline and hooking it all together in a way that really melts and is fun and doesn't feel like they're promoting themselves?
You know, every person is different, and a lot of this is just through the intake process that I have, and I ask a lot of questions. And sometimes, if I can, I like to pull on those personal threads because that's essential to who they are and their interests. But other times, maybe it's not going to be such a cute tagline. Maybe it's seeing something that the candidate that I'd be working, my client that I'd be working with, they just don't see for themselves. I had a client who it seemed like she had job hopped all over the place. And when I got into it with her, it turns out that she had a lot of jobs, but her specialty was that she would go into startup companies, get in there, make a heck of a lot of money, and get them enough cash to give the company legs. And then her work was done. I mean, they were off and running. And so she basically was like a hot shot startup revenue generator.
Mm.
And so instead, her fear was that she looked like she'd been job hopping, when in fact that's what she specialized in. And so she didn't see that specialty that she offered, and so that's how we rebranded her, to say, this is what enabling startup businesses to gain a rapid infusion of cash to get them operable. And that was what she did. And so it's sometimes addressing directly what your specialty is amazing.
I would bet any startup company would want someone like her.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's hard to get going. And so that's what she did. And she knew how to pull all the levers to make it happen.
Wow, what a great skill. So connections get conversations and conversations get offers. If most jobs are filled through relationships, how can someone who doesn't already have a really powerful network build that one that actually leads to opportunity?
You have to start small, and it's not about quantity, it's about quality. That's what I always say. LinkedIn is the obvious tool that most people use these days. One of the things that I tell people is it's LinkedIn. When you find someone of interest on LinkedIn, it's not just a simple matter of saying, I'd like to connect with you. There's a basic, you know, little connection request. You have to start a conversation. Let them person know why you want to connect with them, because that's the beginning of a longer and bigger conversation. You can't just connect with someone and immediately expect like a job to fall in your lap. People hire who they know. So if you're reaching out, building those connections, and a lot of times people neglect even just your personal connections if they're looking for a job. The more specific you can be in what types of job, like job title or a company you're interested in working for, then you could put that out to your network, your personal network of friends and connections, and say, do you know someone at this company, or do you know any companies hiring a product manager or project manager or whatever it
Uh-huh.
is? The more specific you can be, no single person is a job bank. They're not keeping track of these things. But what I do have is a connection list. And so that goes for both personal connections and even just business connections too. And just be specific about what you're looking for, but also you kind of need to add a little honey in there too. You don't want to just say, bam, I want to connect with you, can you give me the name of so and so? It takes a little bit of time to build that relationship before it's graceful enough to ask something. The worst kind of people are the ones that just show up on your doorstep, say, I'd like to connect with you, and immediately follow up with a demand. And that's just not good behavior. It's poor etiquette.
Yeah. So, when is a good time to be building these relationships, especially if it's taking time? Is it when you feel like maybe it's time for a change? Is it when you're feeling solid, or when is that good time?
It's all the time. You should not be building a network just right when you need it. The power of a network and the benefit of a network really comes into fruition whenever you have spent the time to mindfully and thoughtfully and intentionally cultivate contacts that would be in the field that you're interested in or at the company you're interested in applying to. And even just following, connecting with thought leaders, those types of things. Those are all people and places and things that you should be thinking about in advance of your next career move. Sometimes we don't have the luxury of time. Sometimes the job is changing right now. You may have lost your job. So you're kind of set back on your feet a little bit, but you're going to have to do some legwork to get the ground running. And mainly it's all about establishing relationships. It's not a one and done. It's not an immediate demand. X does not necessarily equal Y. It happens over a period of time, and it may take several steps and different levels of connection with that person through your relationship building before the ask is actually possible.
Right. And it might feel awkward, I would think, to be reaching out to these folks, especially maybe you don't know if you're interested in a company while you're having a great position and you're in a good situation. What are some ways that you found that works that that you as an individual can write to people is to start to expand that network? What do
You
you
know,
say?
well, there's some tips for people if you're reaching out to someone then you don't know. And that's usually kind of an intimidating thing for most of us. And I mentioned I'm an extrovert introvert, so it's like my worst nightmare. But, the internet is an amazing thing. That's what I'll say. There's so much information out there. You can find common ground. Anytime you can find common ground, it could be a quote, a post, content, mutual affiliations or connections or groups, thought leadership, anything that you can do to say, hey, I saw this and I thought of you, or you wrote this and I wanted to reach out because I'd love to stay in touch with you and learn more. There's just so many different pieces of information out there that you can leverage into a conversation starter. That, it's like, oh, you're going to this conference? I'll be there too. Hey, why don't we grab coffee together?
Yeah.
You can't just connect and let it sit. The old thing that, if you build it, they will come. That does not play out very well. Your profile is nice, it's good, it should be robust, but the real happiness and the real action that comes out of the interactions you get off of LinkedIn are all through your networks and building connections and having rapport and engagement. Absolutely.
There you go. Um, so getting laid off or fired can feel like the end of the road.
Absolutely.
I've been there. I've been there for sure. But
Hmm.
it can also be a rebranding moment, a real opportunity to sit back and say, okay, what is really going to work for me and how can I help this or cause it to be a launching pad? What advice do you give someone who's just let go and is panicking on what to do next?
The best advice is to stop and take a breath and be recentered. There's going to be a grieving process because so many of us attach our personal identity to our job identity. And if that's been yanked away, there's a lot of loss that we do suffer. And it can be very traumatic depending on how the employer handled it. But take some time, grieve, center yourself. This is kind of the fun part of it. I know you're thinking, well, how's she going to be talking about the fun part of being laid off? But I can't tell you how many people I know that have been in a job they've been pushing so hard their whole lives. And there's that little voice in their head saying, oh, I'd really like to try XYZ. Oh, but I can't because I'm in the middle of this career. And so we don't ever give ourselves the headspace to be able to explore other avenues. And
Yeah.
so this could be that opening. Sometimes it's a godsend that you can actually say, oh, I'm going to go take a class. And that could be something could spark something else on you. And then also just simply understanding what are your transferable skill sets
Mm.
and then start talking to people. It's amazing how many people in their lives have suffered some type of job loss or change in their employment situation. So you're not alone. And that's also important, getting some support with some groups as well, just so
Mm.
that you don't feel that complete loss. I know I live in Portland, Oregon, and there was several job groups that I used to sit in on and give some advice. And I could see the change in attitude in the room because, yes, everybody in there was in there because they had lost their job. But
Mm.
as they spoke, they shared some of their connections in their field. And it was amazing. You can see the cross pollination happening, that maybe it wasn't something that I had a direct stake in, but if I was a job seeker, but someone else was talking and they had friends in a field that they were happy to introduce me to. And it was like, wow, what amazing connection point. So, just taking the time, grapple with your grief, sort through that, then start taking inventory about what kinds of things can you do, and maybe do some of those exploratory types of things. You don't want to just jump into something just to jump into something. I realize there's a difference between a career job and an emergency job when we have to pay the bills and there's money needs to come in. So do what you can to find a job. If it's an emergency situation, find something that will, plug the leaks, the financial leaks as best as possible, but give yourself some of that space to try to think through, okay, well, career-wise, where do I want to go?
Uh,
And that's really important to just kind of get that centered time and realize that there are a lot of opportunities out there. And it could be also, like I said, the opportunity to reskill yourself too.
yeah. So, can you tell me an example of someone that was in this exact position, how they felt immediately after, how they went through the grieving process, and then what happened in the end?
Yeah, I have a great story actually. I still can't believe this happened. So, I had worked with a client, and she was in a very bad place. She was with an employer that who not only verbally abused her, but he actually threw her down some stairs. So, it's physically abusive. Of a small company.
Oh,
She
wow.
arrived on my doorstep looking for some help on her resume, and she just had no confidence. No, she was just broken. So I think the advantage of working with a third party can help pull out some of those things and start to pull out the mirror and shine it. And that's what I do is I say, I'm just polishing the mirror and holding it back up to you. And that's what I did. So years go past. I help a lot of people, and then they just forget to let me know what happened. So anyway, I'm walking into this large conference, and we were in the same industry at the time. And I come up to a table, it's a dinner or luncheon event. So it's like 5,000 people, all these tables for lunch. And I saw an open spot. I said, "Oh, can I sit here? Is this open?" And she said, looked at me. She's like, "Hey, Rasmussen, oh my God, you saved my life." And I'm like, "What?" And she reminded me who she was, and I remembered her situation. And she said, "I found my dream job. And you, through this whole resume development process, helped clarify her value. I clarified her value and gave her that shot of confidence that she needed to be able to see that she still had value. Mentally, she was broken down, but that shot of confidence gave her enough oomph to be able to apply for her dream job. She ended up getting it, and she just was happier than a clam. And it was just, I don't get too many awesome encounters like that. And I'd never met her in person before until we sat down together at this conference, but it was pretty fantastic. So it can just make a difference when you take that breath and then even work with someone who can provide some of that outside perspective, because it's hard when you're broken or traumatized. Absolutely.
That's incredible that just that chair was there and you got to see
I
the end
know.
of the story.
It was just, I don't know. It was kismet.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. Before we move into the insider group questions,
Hmm.
how would they get a hold of you to work with you on their resume?
Okay. Well, the thing, it's hard to describe. And let me just give you a little bit of background. Many, 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 many years ago, I was a receptionist. And this does play into this, believe it or not. But when you're a receptionist, you have to have and command a pretty comprehensive knowledge of resources. And you also have to exhibit a lot of critical thinking, because you have to listen to what people are asking for and then know how to connect them to what they need. And the best people in those types of jobs are the ones that really have an exhaustive knowledge and can, just like whatever you need. If I don't know, I know where to send you. And that's really what people want to know. So being resourceful and critical thinking is going to be really important in a job search. Don't just rule something out because it doesn't feel right at this very moment. Realize that this could get you thinking about another direction. It could give you some other additional ideas of how you might parlay your skills into a new role or propose a new role. Always think about the bigger picture. The execution will follow. But just realize that, again, nothing ever happens immediately. I mean, I can speak as a small business owner. I found that if you do X, it doesn't mean that Y is going to happen immediately after that. It might be Y, Z, and then A, B, C, D, E, F. And so it's like how people see marketing online nowadays. They think, "Oh, I'm going to put an ad up and I'm going to get all these bookings." It doesn't work that way. You want to build those relationships, and relationships take longer, and they also require authenticity and being genuine. And so taking that time, it means it's a longer tail of time. But if you do it right, you're going to be a known and visible quantity before the need arises. So you're already moving front of mind, and that's exactly where you want to be. So it's a lot more of a uh, you're thinking more of marketing yourself and also kind of operating from a place of abundance versus scarcity. Scarcity means you're scrambling and you're feeling threatened, and abundance is more like, I'm here, I have a lot to offer, and I'm going to find the right opportunity. And maybe I will make a wrong decision, but I'll learn something from it. That's a great mentality to
I like that. And so, how can they get a hold of you?
have. So I have Pathfinder Careers. You can find me at pathfindercareers.com, and I'm all over the web. I'm also on LinkedIn. Yes, I should be. Yeah, and so you can find me on my website. It has all kinds of information about all the different services I offer in the career services arena.
Now, are you ready for the rapid fire questions?
Go for it.
Okay. What is one underrated way to expand your professional network that most people overlook?
A lot of people overlook any kind of social setting, such as like a barbecue or holiday party or something like that. They're just there to have a good time. And if you're in a job search, who do people know? People know other people. So again, taking advantage of those situations, there's a summer barbecue, a summer party, graduation party. There's people standing around having a good time, and that's the time you can strike up a conversation. And just by asking the other party questions, they get start talking, and then you can get your mind going and think about how you can interact.
I like that.
Yeah.
What's a phrase or question that you recommend using when reaching out to someone you don't know yet?
That's a hard one because we all get cold feet, don't we? Right? It's
Yes.
very, very difficult to do. So if you have something, I mentioned this earlier, if you have something that is in common that you can share with them, that is a common interest. If people love to be have their ego stroke, which is terrible, but it's true. You could say, I saw you speak, or I saw your quote in this magazine, or whatever, and it prompted me to reach out. And people are like, well, oh, okay, well, yeah, sure, okay, I'll listen to you. But that does work. It really does. So if you could just mention it, or just say, oh, I saw you played this really big role in this merger, or whatever it is, you can find little tidbits of information out there to tap into, to use as a common. You can show that you have knowledge, or it might be a common group or a common connection. If you can get someone to give you a personal referral or a mutual introduction, that's even better.
There you go. So,
Yeah,
what's a career management tool or strategy you wished more women or even purpose driven people used?
I love this one. Okay, so I'm going to speak to the women.
Okay.
All right. I want everybody to write this down. When you are overthinking your qualifications and thinking, oh my gosh, I only have like 85% of the qualifications, I want you to write this phrase down, and you're going to shake your head and then nod. And the phrase is, the man be asking himself this question mark. And just like you just laughed, Natalie, a lot of CEOs will laugh too. And it's
Yeah.
an uncomfortable laugh because I'm right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So men just go for it. And women end up overthinking things. They worry about becoming too aggressive and that kind of thing. But men just own it and they don't think about it. And we have to start thinking that same way.
Yeah. There you go. You're a lot better than you think. What you don't have, you'll figure it out.
Right. And that's
There's
what
this
guys do.
thing called intuition.
Yes. And use it.
Yes. What's one networking myth that you want to bust once and for all?
That's a good one. I would say that if you just get lazy about LinkedIn, it's not going to do anything. You get out of anything that you put into it. So you can't just assume, oh, I talked to Susie or I sent her a note on LinkedIn and then she's going to get back to me. People are notoriously bad about getting back to each other these days. It's horrible to get a call back about anything, or let alone an email
Mm.
response. You don't want to be a pest. So you have to be careful about that. You don't want to seem like a stalker. You got to be careful about that. But let some time elapse. People get busy and their inbox gets full and they've got voicemails and all these things. So, give it a little time and then nudge them again. And that's okay to do. But, you can't just sort of give up. In sales, this is again kind of your own sales and marketing campaign. You need to realize that it takes more than just one interaction to put yourself at the front runner of like, oh, you'd be a great candidate for this job, or I should talk to Dawn because this opening's happening. It doesn't happen that way. You have to build that long-term approach. And so networking isn't a one-shot wonder kind of platform or act. You have to think long-term, and it's going to involve multiple contacts.
So, what's a personal mantra or mindset that's helped you navigate or helped you help your clients navigate tough transitions, tough career
You know,
transitions?
that's a big thing. You have to be resourceful. I mentioned that earlier, but you also have to have faith and hope in yourself. It could be
Mm.
very devastating to lose a job. And, you know, here, this was something someone told me a long time ago, and I'd love to share it. It's like in 5 years, if you look in the rearview mirror, what's the situation going to look like right now? And I had a situation a long time ago. It's been almost 20 years now, but I look in the rearview mirror and it just seems like ancient history. But in the moment, you just feel like it's all consuming, and it's just your whole world is ending. And I'm one of those people definitely who attached my sense of self-worth to my career. And it was not my fault what happened. And it just was business. And that happens too. But, if you kind of put it in perspective, in 5 years, is this really going to matter? It could, because it means that there's a huge shift in your career. But at the same time, you realize it is not the end of the world. And, it's how you pick yourself up and keep on going. That's the thing. And just work hard at it. Looking for a job is a full-time job. It's not just a little dabble here and a little dabble there. No, you have to be full on and engaged and keep track of everything. And it's like a job. So you have job responsibilities and looking for a job.
Well, I thank you so much for coming on to the Unsealing You. I think that this is great information for folks and lots of ahas. So thank you so much.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you.
Awesome. I love what Dawn just shared, that career growth is really about knowing your value and expressing it clearly. If there's one takeaway today, it's this: your story is your strategy. When you start trusting your narrative instead of waiting for others to validate it, opportunities begin to find you. You can connect with Dawn at pathfindercareers.com, and I put a link in the show notes. If you're ready to stop leading from validation and start leading from self-trust, you'll have to check out the Leadership Reset program that I'm creating. This is our framework for calm, confident, sustainable leadership. Until next time, take radical responsibility for your life and watch the ripple effect unfold.